Hello, Facebook, and welcome to day 4 of the 5-day the 5-day outlining workshop. I'm Danielle Vega, also known as Danielle Rollins, and today we're going to outline Act 2B of your novel. So, just a quick reminder, yesterday we talked about Act 2A. Now, keep in mind, each of these acts are about 25% or a quarter of your novel. So we break down Act 2 into 2 like this because Act 2 is actually about half of your novel. And so you can easily break them down into Act 2A and 2B so that it's neatly divided into quarters. So yesterday was Act 2A. That is the fun and games section of your novel. We talked about how to handle that since it's really traditionally one of the most difficult things to get right and to keep interesting for writers everywhere. And we ended with the midpoint high and low, which is like if your novel is a roller coaster going up, the midpoint high and low is like you're at the summit of the roller coaster and everything is about to drop out from beneath your main character's feet. Just to really mix my metaphors there, everything's about to go south. Okay, so today we're gonna raise the stakes. In your fun and games section, there was a lot of tension building. There was a lot of, kind of trying to set up and establish the world. Today, we're going to talk about the fast-paced, action-packed scenes in your novel. So these are the ones, they'll be going at a breakneck speed. It's when everything starts to kind of come together and your plot really starts flying. So Blake Snyder, who we talked about yesterday, he's the guy who wrote the Save the Cat books. He calls these scenes bad guys close in. And I think that that is such a brilliant way to look at them because these are the scenes when the antagonist, the villain in your novel really starts to get closer. And there's some time there where your main character is actually starting to think maybe this guy will win. So unlike the promise of the premise, your main character is starting to realize that getting what she wants isn't actually going to solve all of her problems. So remember how we talked about how in Act 1, you're going to establish what your main character wants kind of by setting up a series of problems that she's dealing with that would be solved if she could just get what she wanted. So in Harry Potter, that's, we established that he doesn't really have a lot of friends. He doesn't really belong in his family. He lives in a closet under the stairs. Like, things are not going great for Harry Potter. And then in Act 2A, we saw him getting closer to what he wants, and these problems are starting to become solved. So all of a sudden he has a ton of friends. He really belongs at Hogwarts. He has enough food at every meal. He's sleeping in this giant 5-poster bed. Like, things are looking up for Mr. Potter here. So Act 2B is when we kind of send that crashing back to the ground. That's when we realize that, hey, getting what you want is not actually going to fix your life. So whereas in Act 2A, we're showing all of the ways that the main character is kind of getting closer to this ideal version of their reality. In Act 2B, this is when your main character is going to start realizing that, there's something deeper that he wants that, actually is more important. It's something that he actually needs more than the thing that he wants. And I think that I kind of fumbled the explanation for that there. So basically, if you think about Harry Potter, all Harry wants is to belong somewhere. He wants, a type of family. And that's really important to him. The midpoint high and low has him going on detention. And now all of a sudden, he realizes that Voldemort is a lot closer to his school and to getting what he, coming back to life than he realizes. And that even though all Harry wants is to belong at school, he realizes that there's a deeper need he has to go after, which is making sure Voldemort does not come back to life. In the Hunger Games, all Katniss wants to do is survive the games. This has been her goal from the beginning, but around the midpoint of the novel, Rue, her young friend who reminds her of her sister, Rue dies very tragically, and Katniss starts to realize that she can't just want to survive the games. There's a deeper thing at play here, and it's that the games are so horrible that she needs to make a protest. And so even though she has to risk her own survival to do so, she actually takes a moment to cover Rue's body with flowers as a protest that the cameras will pick up and then broadcast to the rest of the world, showing that she does not stand for what's happening in the Hunger Games. Likewise, in Harry Potter, once he realizes that he needs to fight Voldemort and that Voldemort's going after the Sorcerer's Stone, which is somewhere hidden inside of Hogwarts. He sacrifices what he wants, which is to belong and to, you know, kind of be popular and like get people in Hogwarts to like him by sneaking out again at night. If you'll remember, he lost a bunch of points for the house. He's very unpopular at this point, but he decides he doesn't care because it's more important that he sneaks out and makes sure that Voldemort does not get what he wants. So in both ways, you see how your main character is sacrificing their superficial want from Act 1 and 2A to go after what they need, which is something that solidifies more in Act 2B and Act 3. So this is a major growing point for your character. Obviously, your character is going to be growing and changing throughout the entire course of your novel, but this choice, this switch where they decide to go after what they need rather than what they want, this is a fundamental character change moment. If you're one of those people, and I have to admit this is something I have struggled with a lot, who doesn't always do the best job of showing how your character grows and changes, this is a really key, pivotal moment to be paying attention to because it's a great place to show a lot of character growth and change. Okay, so your roller coaster's going down. We're going right through the raise the stakes, bad guys close in, deep dive. Right down there at the very bottom of your dive, we're going to have what is called a second act high. Now, you'll probably be thinking to yourself, this kind of mirrors your midpoint high that we talked about before. That's intentional. The second act high is almost like the midpoint high, but it should be a bigger win. This is the point at which your character is convinced that she has won. So in the Hunger Games, this is when Katniss and Peeta, they defeat Cato. They are convinced that they've won the Hunger Games and they're actually going to live. In Harry Potter, this is when he makes it through all of the challenges of the Chamber of Secrets, and not the Chamber of Secrets, we're talking about Sorcerer's Stone. He makes it through all of the challenges and is about to get the Sorcerer's Stone. He thinks that he's won, all right? So that is your second act high, immediately followed by something called the second act low, when your character realizes that no, she has not won, and in fact, she is further from her prize than she ever was before. So in the Hunger Games, for an example, it is, Katniss and Peeta are convinced that they've won the Hunger Games. They think they're going home. And then a voice comes over the loudspeaker saying, actually, you guys have to kill each other now. We've changed the rules back. In Harry Potter, it's Harry thinks that he has found the stone. He's in the final chamber. He is ready to claim his prize. And he realizes, in fact, there is somebody standing in that room, and he has been beaten to the stone, and there's one more person left for him to defeat. Okay, so the midpoint low is the lowest moment in your book. This is when your main character, your reader, everybody thinks that the main character has lost. Like, nobody thinks that there is a way to move forward from here. This is where you get a lot of the drama that is so great at the end of the book and keeps people, when people describe that feeling where they just can't stop turning the pages and they just have to see what happens next, this is how you do it. Your main character needs to look like she has failed ultimately, and there is no way forward. This is a moment that is often called all is lost or the second act curtain, and it is a very, very important moment. So if you can't quite figure out how to really drive home that your main character has failed, consider doing another Pixar brainstorm to just come up with lots of different ideas and really get your brain thinking about a way to do this, because this is a really important point in the novel. Tomorrow, we're going to go right into Act 3. It's the act that I like to call the showdown. And it's actually quite a bit shorter than all of the other acts. So tomorrow should be a short class. But it's basically when all of the things that we have been setting up over the last 3 acts come together, and we get a final showdown between your main character and the villain, and we get to see how this all ties up and ties together. So this was a really quick class. I have time for a couple of questions. I can kind of chill here for a second if you guys, to see if anybody has questions, because sometimes it takes a second to type them in, so I can just kind of chill out, but I don't see anybody typing, so I'm going to go ahead and end this. Tomorrow, same time, same place, one question. I missed every other stream before today, but is it possible to take a story you've already started and fit it to this outline to get the steamroller going again? Stefan, yes, it is. In fact, almost every one of my books up until my most recent series, Burning and Breaking, Almost every other one of those, I had to go in and do this after. So I had written out an entire plot and thought that I had it right. And guess what? It wasn't right, because outlines are really important, and I at least should never write a book without an outline. And so I actually went in after and figured out a way to structure my book around this pre-existing outline, and it made it a lot better. So if you have a full manuscript and you're just not getting a lot of traction on it and something's wrong, I would highly recommend taking a look at the workbook and seeing if there's a way to utilize these tips to kind of restructure it. Hannah Ann, should this section be about 25% of the book as well, or should it be a little shorter to keep it clipping along? I like to keep most of the acts at about 25%, and this one as well should probably be around 25%. The one exception is Act 3. Act 3 does tend to be a little bit shorter, because once you get to the final showdown, you just kind of want to clean it up and be done. But this one, yeah, try and think about around 25% of the book. And this is something that I struggle with as well. Like, I am, as you can tell from this class, I'm sure, I'm a very structure-oriented person. And so if somebody says 25% of the book, I'm gonna make it 25% of the book. But these are just rough guidelines. So if this ends up being more like, 20% of the book, that's fine. But try and keep it within the general parameters. Otherwise, you end up feeling really Act 1 heavy, and it's the thing that people say where they're like, oh, the book just took a really long time to get started. That's what they mean. They mean that the structure was kind of wonky, and maybe Act 1 was really 30% of the book and Act 2B was only 20% of the book. So this is a fun section of the book where there's a lot of fighting and a lot of drama and a lot of tension. So people are going to want a good chunk of this. So if you can make it 25%, that's a good idea. And that just took a really long time to answer that question. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. This was awesome. I had a blast. Tomorrow we're going to just clean it all up. We're going to finish strong with Act 3. And by tomorrow, you guys should have a full outline, or at least the tools that you need to write a full outline, which is awesome. Really, you guys should be really proud of yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and log off, and I will see you tomorrow for the showdown. Take it easy, guys. Have a good Thursday.